Everybody, delighted to have you all here, and I know some of you are still joining us, so keep it coming, and we hope we can have a really good session. As normal, if you have questions, please, throughout this presentation, I'm sure you will, just drop them into chat, and we'll cover those at the end of the presentation, if that's okay. But first of all, let me welcome Louise and Siobhan, who you all would know. To start out with, Louise is unfortunately stuck in Spain. She got hit with the power cut, and she's pretending she's in a meeting room, but we believe she's in the pool enjoying herself. But she has managed to get us all here. Louise, take a bow. Thank you so much for being able to do it in all your stress, which is great. And Siobhan and I are just back from the States, and we were actually in a tornado, and our power went out as well. So we know what it is like. Siobhan, great to have you here. Siobhan's helping to co-host the session today, but our real star of the day is Peter Heenahan. And Peter, it's great to have you back. Absolutely delighted. And I think the last time I attempted to do an introduction to you, I probably undersold you significantly. So as part of as I ask you to get started, you might give us your own introduction, if you would, about your own background in this particular space. That would be a great way to kick off. But to really kick things off, I suppose, Peter, there's so much to cover in this space. And I know that people are very keen to get some feedback from you about what sort of AI tools are out there that can help them in their role. But, just before we even get into that particular space, it would be wonderful for you to kind of give us the basics again around what is the AI and why it is absolutely critical for the success in delivering CX without impacting on the human touch in many ways. So, are you comfortable? I'll hand over to you, Peter, and let's kick off and see how we get on. All righty?
Brilliant. Well, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm just very quickly going to share my screen. I just put in a request to do that. There we go.
Great.
Yeah. Can you all see that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Yes.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
look, firstly, it's I spoke probably 6 months ago, I'd say, maybe a little bit longer. I cannot tell you how much stuff has changed in that space of time. The pace at which this is going is unbelievable, and even I would say the top experts are struggling to keep pace with their competitors. So almost every day there's another announcement from OpenAI or X or Google or whoever else it may be. So I'm going to try and talk you through some really good examples. And we're going to share the slides with you later as well. So if you miss anything and I'm speeding through the slides, don't worry, you'll get all that information later. But really just to kick off and tell you a little bit about myself. So 2 years ago, I started a business called The Future Communicator to look at AI. But prior to that, I was the UK government's chief digital communicator. And during that time, we had to deal with Brexit, the COVID pandemic, and the start of the Ukraine crisis from a British point of view. And it was one of the most challenging, but biggest experience I've ever had. We brought together at the heart of government, we brought together behavioral science and data science. We brought together communicators, marketeers, CX practitioners, like all these people were brought into the center, particularly during the COVID pandemic. And at the same time, we started to introduce AI at its earliest form. So I had a really good sense of holistically, what does this all look like and where it is going? And even I'm incredibly surprised by how fast this has gone since I left government just over 2 years ago. And so the Future Communicator, what we do is we work with organizations to help them embed AI effectively. It's not just a technology, it's a mind shift change. And we're trying to get leaders, particularly because it needs to be from on high and then teach within the organization. Because sometimes you'll be in an organization of some brilliant practitioners, but they're not having the opportunity to take the AI and bring it across the business. And we've had the great opportunity to work with the likes of Diageo, the World Economic Forum, and many others, and it's been incredible so far. But we offer upskilling, we help embed the technology, and we also build out our own technology as well. But I wanted to maybe Michael or one of Siobhan or Louise, if you could just check. Maybe if people want to maybe put their hands up or comment how they feel about AI. Like, are people excited?
Brilliant. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that. And just drop it into chat there, and we can pass this back. You're probably picking that up too, Peter. Are you seeing the chat there?
I can't because I'm on the
Oh,
scene.
you're on a different screen.
We'll
Okay,
share it
we'll
with you.
capture
Mixed
that.
emotions,
Yes.
Matthew. Excited but skeptical. Yeah, I think that's very relevant. Great tool. Excited, suspicious but curious.
Very good.
Wary, excited, lots of excited and interest, but a little bit of cautiousness, I think, is what's
Yeah, and
coming
frightened.
across there.
And
Yeah.
that's totally understandable. When I think of AI being used in military, in drone technology, this kind of thing is absolutely terrifying. But for the work we all do in marketing communications and CX, this is a technology we genuinely have been dreaming of. It allows us to do things smarter and quicker than ever before. And often when budgets are tight, you know, AI steps in and actually fills the gap in many cases. And I'm going really back to basics here. Do people know what this is?
Yes, I know what that is.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
Anybody not know what it is?
Assume very few would know what that is. Assume that.
So this is a mobile library bus. This was my access to knowledge. When I was a kid in the 90s, which anybody that grew up in the 90s in Ireland was a fantastic time, we were really finding our feet as a nation. And my access to knowledge was my primary school education. And once a week, this bus would turn up near my home. And I would go on the bus with my library card and I could pick up 3 books. And my son's around the same age. He's the same age now as I was back then. And like his passions are the Titanic, and he loves Godzilla, and he loves Doctor Who, which is a British TV program. Now, back then, if I wanted to get a book about those, the chances are it wouldn't be in the library. So I would have to wait probably several weeks for it to be brought in. The bus comes back to my local area, I get the book, then I have my knowledge. My son will pick up my phone now. He'll just talk to ChatGPT he'll walk off for an hour and have a conversation, and he will learn about everything. So we've gone from a position where we had very limited access to knowledge to having it on tap at all times. Like that's the transformation we've gone through. And the reason why this is important, and again, I am going quite basic here, I think it's really important to really kind of ground us where this is, because then you can start to see the opportunity, is in the analog age. So when I started my career, this was at the BBC. I was working in their communications department, and we would get a call from like the Daily Mail or whoever, and they'd have a negative story that they wanted to run about us. I would then have to run down the line, speak to the Director General's office and various other parts of the business, and then go back with a line against inquiry to say how much value we were for our money. Um, and then the next day, front page news would be BBC squandering license fee payers' money or something of that ilk. And then at the bottom, it would have a spokesperson says, and then my response. So in that world, it was very much, and again, this applies to all the work we do, it is how do we impact the media and reach our audiences? So in many cases, it was through PR or advertising. And it was very much, as soon as you gave that to the media, it was between the media and the customer. We didn't really we weren't that involved in the day to day unless we had in real life events. Then there's this massive explosion. It's when so smartphone technology comes along and then social media at the same time. And suddenly you can communicate directly. There's a proliferation of channels in which you can communicate. And it was a massive change. It's when you saw this explosion of new companies like your Gymsharks could never have started during this period. They could only have been created because they didn't have access to capital or anything. So the ability to create influence and then reach audiences at scale allowed them to grow. And unsurprising, you have your Ubers, your TikToks, this whole emergence of new businesses and new ways of communicating. And then, November the 30th, 2022 happened. This was the arrival of ChatGPT. It's not that ChatGPT was the beginning of AI, but for many people it really was, because prior to that, the technology, which has been around for decades, was very much baked into the products you use. So your Netflix would give you recommendations using AI. Um, but day to day you didn't get to use it. But for the first time, we really had access to a technology that was incredibly easy to use, which had millions of applications for the work that we all do as individuals. So what's happening now is we're plugging in literally thousands of these AI tools into the world of business. And for us, we call this a halo. It's a halo of tools that you will have as an individual or as a team or as an organization. And if you start thinking about that, these tools allow you to do your job quicker, more effective, or at larger scales. And there's knowledge and intelligence baked into them as default. So it's still in this connected world, socially connected world, but it's now supercharged by AI. And this matters because every business or an organization is now competing against businesses which will scale from nothing. In the same way, the social media age, Gymshark came out of nowhere and Uber came out of nowhere and took on their industries. We're going to see a complete change in terms of new businesses that are going to be taking on the established businesses. But equally, if you use AI effectively, you will steal a march. And this also applies, let's say, for example, consumer complaints. It has never been easier to write the most tailored, legally standard letter and send it to a company to complain. I've had to do it myself in the past. Before it would have been a kind of a scrappy, quick email. Now it's a really considered response from what I would say is a legal expert has writing this on my behalf. So that's what we're competing against. So we'll have additional knowledge. People who want to complain will also have knowledge at their disposal at all times. So really what I want to do next is really talk about, well, what actually is generative AI? And if there is any questions, feel free to shout them out if there's anything that jumps out. But for me, boiling it down to its most simplistic, AI for generative AI in our world is text, image, audio, and audio visual. And then the two at the bottom, on the right at the bottom is 3D modeling. And then on the left, it's coding. And I used to ignore these two at the bottom. It was not in my world, couldn't care less about them until about 3 months ago. And I started experimenting with a product I'll show you later called Lovable. Lovable allows you, in the same way that when you use ChatGPT and you say, write me a press release about, you can now say, create me a chatbot about, and it will start building you the chatbot beside you. It's unbelievable. So it allows non-coding experts and developers to build products. And the same way applies, and again, I'm going to go back to this a lot, the multimodal nature. I can start with text and I can have video content. I can start with text, I can have a website. I can start with text and have audio. All these sort of bleed into one another. And that's the beauty of multimodal generative AI. And this will start to become apparent as we go through this presentation. And why this matters is that when I started my career, going back to when I was at the BBC, I was a wordsmith. There was very little production. You know, I would have to go to producers to create that information. Social media age, we are all content creators now. We're all producing content on Instagram and on our phones. So before you needed a production team, now you're doing it yourself. My belief is that the next stage in this evolution is we will start to do more image, audio, visual content, and we'll start to introduce coding or digital products at a cheap or no cost point that we never even tried before because AI enables us to do it. That may be a few years off, but it will come pretty quickly, I reckon. And just to get into it, where I see this all going, and then I'm going to get into the exact examples of tools, is if you imagine we're living in this multimodal world where AI is available, and we'll start introducing this concept of a 20-60-20. So we will spend 20% upfront coming up with the ideas, pulling together all the relevant information, the strategies, and so forth. We'll then allow AI to start doing up to 60% of the work in between. And if you do this right, it's back to you as the expert again to fine tune and finish the work off. We'll never, I would highly recommend not doing this, which is prompting with using AI, gets results, and then allowing that going out, because there is hallucinations. It may not quite understand what you need. So bookending any piece of work you do is crucial. So it's gathering the information, prompt, use AI technologies, fine tune it, finesse it as the expert. So you're the editor in chief of anything you produce.
Yeah, we would say, Peter, to on that point, is it's so important that when you're using AI, that you do monitor and evaluate its performance, and that you're not, that we're using still an element of human critical thinking in everything that we're doing. I think that's really important too.
100%. The human in the loop becomes more and more crucial than ever, because what you're going to start seeing is AI talking to AI talking to AI. So, well, look, where is the human within that? Somebody needs to have the expertise. And that's why, as practitioners, and the fact that you're working with the CX Academy, you're learning the best practices, approaches. So the ability to then step in and go, actually, that wouldn't work for our organization becomes so crucial. I'm not going to go through all these, but we will share this with you afterwards so you can start experimenting with them in your own time. And I should also point out as well that we're not endorsing any particular products. But what I wanted to do today was really show you what's out there on the market at the moment. So I would say day to day, everybody should probably, and you're probably doing this already, choosing one LLM. So it might be that you're using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Copilot. So I'd say at the top, you've got that one LLM, which is almost like the workhorse. It does most of the day-to-day work that you're doing. And then what you're going to introduce is specialist tools. So that could be, for example, let's say you're in the sort of translation space. You may choose, and I should point out, Google Translate, which has been around for years, is still one of the best products on the market. But you might go down DeepL, which is a really powerful tool. You might have certain tools for creating, like building chatbots specifically for CX. And there's a bunch of tools here. Some of them are cheaper than others. Some of them are like really high enterprise level. You may want to introduce voice or an avatar technology. I'm going to show you some examples in a while. But these tools are so easy to use. You, like in the case of the vert I'm going to show you later, it's text to avatar. You choose an avatar, you choose a voice, and you type. You'll have some specifically for content creation, or you'll have some for certain types of intelligence. So we will touch on some of these as we go along, and I would recommend experimenting with them, doing your own research as well. But here's just a kind of list of the types of tools that are currently on the market, and some of them you'll know, some of them you've probably never heard of before.
Yeah, and I think the ones that do it, there's a fantastic range of tools there. And I think for anyone that's watching, we as an organization, we're always being asked, what are the tools that we should be using? And as to your point earlier on, Peter, the environment changes so fast that we could recommend something today and tomorrow there's something even better out that's going to absolutely blow it out of the water. So it's really good to see what's out there. Again, this isn't a recommendation, but another one that we've come across as well, that does fantastic translation, and I think what it's called SmartCat. And what it does really well is it's the translation, but it also has the human element. So we can request for something to be translated, but it also offers us the option of having a human review it at the end who is an expert in that language and in the field. So you have that perfect blend of your AI and your human working together. But yeah, it's fantastic to see all of
Peter, can I jump in there too? Because the comments we're getting, we are getting feedback from people here. They are anxious, but it's lovely to hear from you that it's never been so easy to use AI. And that's a great thing to take. So I suspect that some of that anxiety is down to how do I personally get to use these? And you're also saying, no, it really now is the time. The one thing that is being consistent is the ease of use for us users. So that's great to hear. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember about a year and a half ago, I showed people an avatar, and they came up to me afterwards as if I'd invented the internet. And I was like, and from that point onwards, I was like, I'm going to have to show people behind the scenes. And I literally, it's like a word processor. You choose an avatar, you choose a voice, and it's just like you literally click a button, you type like you would on a word processor, you press generate, and then 10 minutes later, the video comes back. It's that easy. So a lot of these tools, when people start talking about certain tools, you get a bit scared because you're thinking, I barely know what the functionality is. I mean, how on earth am I going to use them? They're designed to be really easy, and a lot of them are just plug and play.
Yeah.
There is some incredible technologies in the kind of call center space now, which will, and I know Siobhan, you were touching on this before, I think yesterday when we spoke, the ability to analyze in real time and almost offer behavioral science in the background and all this stuff. I mean, maybe you could touch on your experience.
Yeah, so we have our own AI for CX Micros, and some of the research for that we're seeing organizations using AI to help their agents rather than obviously replacing their agents. And there is a place for chatbots, but this was a tool for on real-time sentiment analysis. So where an agent is on a call or email or web chat or whatever it might be with a customer, and they might be irate, they might be upset, it might be complaint. But what the AI tool can do is actually analyze the customer's emotions based on the words that they're using, their tone of voice, all of that, to actually give the agent a deeper insight into what's going on for that customer and be able to allow them to give a more considered response in that. So I think that's phenomenal. And the other thing that I come from a financial services background, and I would have managed contact centers in the past. And the biggest challenge for most organizations was then and still is now is giving their frontline staff a full 360 view of the customer, that full single customer view. And we're seeing some fantastic, and don't ask me to name them now, but I know there's some fantastic AI tools out there that can do that. Whereas it would have cost millions for organizations to do that previously. There are AI tools that can do that. You know, it mightn't be overly cheap, but it's definitely cheaper than it was, and it's definitely easier than it was. And it makes life easier for the staff members, and obviously it makes life easier and improves the experience for the customer as well.
Yeah, and so essentially the person on the phone has access to the best knowledge at all times. It's that idea of like, yeah, you're supercharged. Like I said before, that Halo, their Halo would be that tool.
Yeah.
Because it's tapped into all elements and gives them the best information. It reads how they're emotionally, how they're feeling. I did some work with a company called Peabody. They're a housing association, and they get a lot of complaints from, residents. Just, it just happened. They have over 200,000 homes. You're going to have complaints. And one of their worries is the people handling the complaints, could they get into a spat with the individual as opposed to using AI to tone down the kind of the emotion within their response? There's little. So what I'm going to do is show you some examples of bigger tools, but I'm also going to show you how to do this at no cost or low cost. So
Brilliant.
I'm going to kick off. I'm going big to begin with. This is kind of like the types of best in class that exist. So I'll just play this video for you now.
Customer operations are changing fast, but today we still lose several hours daily with routine tasks or navigating fragmented systems, which means experiences are often frustrating. Introducing AI for Service, an AI-powered transformation of customer experiences. 24/7 conversational human-like interactions, smart contextually informed routing, dynamic real-time support for human agents, and automated quality assurance and coaching. AI for Service is built for enterprise on an industry-leading customer experience platform with pre-configured virtual assistants and automation tools and the no-code flexibility to scale to highly bespoke solutions as you grow. Delivering human-like self-service virtual assistants that intelligently anticipate needs and intent, provide insight-driven human agent support that personalizes customer responses, powerful customer search capabilities with personalized results. Gain valuable insights with sentiment analysis and conversation history. Free your customers from frustration and shift human effort to the hardest tasks. Deliver effortless customer experiences with the power of AI for service.
So I apologize for the funky music, but the product itself is actually really powerful, and it touches on what Siobhan you were mentioning before. So there's more of these products coming onto the market, and what they're doing is they're pulling in data from different places. They're analyzing it in real time and giving you the response that you need. You're going to see more and more of this technology coming at a lower and lower price point.
Excellent, excellent.
And I just want to very quickly touch on something that we've built. So I specialize in communications, and we've gone, what are the tools that are needed for communicators? And we're beta testing our product called Lumini at the moment. And what it will do is it will write your press releases. So if it's for your executive press release or an award entry, it'll help you write your speeches, and it's more kind of tactical day-to-day products. But what I'm saying is you're going to see more of this type of technology coming onto the market, which will be bespoke to your individual needs in the roles that you have. And just to show as a bit of fun, we're doing work with McLaren Formula One at the moment, and using our tool, that this is the previous version of it, we wanted to have a race. We said, can we write you a press release as quickly as your driver can do a pit stop? So you're going to see if Lumini beats McLaren. So we said, give us a head start. But so we're just dropping in all that relevant information. And then we're all, ourselves and Lando Norris are having a race.
Fantastic. What a cool client, Peter.
And of course, Lando Norris beat us. It was always going to happen. We took about 20 seconds to write our press release. They did theirs in 1.8 seconds. But the fact is the speed at which you're now able to just quickly produce the kind of content that you need. And obviously the example I showed you before is that technology almost on steroids. This is a stat that jumped out at me. And again, it sort of ties back to that kind of customer interaction, the experiences. Because we're not plugging in all the key data points, on average, only 2% of customer interactions are analyzed by companies.
Wow.
And there might be a million reasons for that. It might be that there's silos within an organization. The tech stack mightn't be there. Maybe it's too expensive. You know, it will really depend on the organization. And I would say there are ways of getting around that in a way that will allow you to analyze them at no cost other than the cost of a ChatGPT account. So I'm going to quickly switch over to ChatGPT for a second. What I've done is I've created, just as an example, 50 tweets which were about my business. They're all made up, but I wanted to show you what this looks like in action. So I've created a sentiment analysis tool. And by the way, I can share this with you guys afterwards. And essentially what it's going to do is analyze it based on key sentiment examples. So what I'm about to do, I'll drop in the information now. And it's now going to give me a readout.
Wow, beautiful.
So that took me 20 minutes to build. Not even. And the great thing about ChatGPT is if you don't know how to build a custom GPT, it will actually teach you, you can ask it. So any kind of task that you have, you can say, I need one for sentiment analysis, or I need one for whatever else it might be, stakeholder mapping. It will allow you to do that in real time. And the beauty about it is you can then say, so it's giving you some examples. You can then ask it further questions afterwards. So yes, you can buy the expensive tools like Sprinkler, which will do a lot more than just the sentiment analysis, but you can also do a lot of this just through a pretty much like a $25 per month ChatGPT account as well.
That is fantastic. It really is a game changer for smaller organizations who maybe don't have the budget to invest in those. That's phenomenal. And then you can probably ask it as well, where are the areas we should focus based on this, and what actions do we need to take?
Yeah, so I can certainly share how you build this, but yes, you can then analyze it again. Like you'll know based on your own organization.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got negative sentiment analysis. Well, if you work in government, when I was working for Boris Johnson, if I was to look at his Twitter account, you'd have 25% people loved him, and then you just have very angry people. So we did nothing. We ignored it. Some organizations, a single tweet or a single kind of negative comment could be incredibly damaging. So it's making sure you're able to analyze it to the needs of your organization. And again, this doesn't have to be tweets. It can be conversations, anything that you've got the data of, you can just gather that up, drop it into, I'd say, a paid version because you want it to be secure and that data not to be leaked out any further. And then just ask it to analyze it and it will give you some really good feedback.
Brilliant.
And that is a form of a GPT. Here was another example. I did one around stakeholder mapping. So this was Peabody, they're a housing association. And I basically asked it to do stakeholder mapping for a specific project in London. Again, I created this using ChatGPT, and what it's now doing is telling you not only the local council, but all the key kind of organizations which they would need to be across when it comes to the stakeholders within that region. I could do the same for Saudi. I could type in Saudi Arabia and a infrastructure project or whatever it may be, and it will still do the same thing. Because what happens is it has a framework, and then it's going off to the individual to the web to find who are the organizations that are relevant to it, and then pulling that information in. So you could use one of these on multiple projects. Oh, seems to have lost the image. I wanted to do something called deep research with you very quickly. This is an experiment, so hopefully it will work. ChatGPT introduced deep research. It's simply this button here. Many of you will have already used this. So I'm doing a little bit of work with Aer Lingus shortly. It's unrelated to CX, it's more communication specific. But for argument's sake, I just said, can you do some research specific to the customer experience and analysis of Aer Lingus? And I've given it a quite comprehensive prompt. I simply press go. It will ask me a bunch of additional questions. So I'm just going to say yes to all of them. In your world, you would just now go away, make a coffee, come back. And what we're going to do is come back in 10 minutes. And if all goes to plan, we will have a full 6 to 8 to 10 page research paper written for us on that topic. Again, it didn't cost me anything other than the £25 per month account. That's the level we can definitely do with this.
Wow,
That's incredible.
stunning. And you're right, Siobhan. How powerful is that for smaller companies who are very, very keen to deliver CX excellence to their customers, but aren't in a position to go out, outsource, key researchers, etc. So it's phenomenal how this is changing the world for the smaller business.
Yeah, and as I said, it's really easy to use, and it's fairly cheap. And an example of that from my time in government, again, this almost touches on the sentiment analysis piece. We did a piece of work called gov.uk/ask, where we allowed the general public to put a question to the Prime Minister or a minister during the press conferences during the COVID pandemic. And we had thousands of questions. I think, how many did we have? We had 650,000 questions. I had to get 2 full-time data scientists to spend a week to get one insight. And sadly, it was domestic violence. But we were then able to go, domestic violence is a problem which the public are talking a lot about. We were able to then write a briefing note to the ministers, the Home Office minister, and also send it to their press off and say, you guys need to do something about this if you're not already across it. With this sentiment analysis tool I built there or something similar, I could, in a morning, so we're talking about 4 or 5 years later, I'm not a data scientist. I could take all those questions and I could produce 10 different briefing notes to 10 government departments about 10 different subjects because ChatGPT has enabled me to do that. That's the pace of change. So anything where you've got data, gather it all up and then use sentiment analysis tools or behavioral or ask it around behavioral science within ChatGPT and it will start giving you really good results.
Fantastic.
I wanted to quickly touch on a product called Lovable quickly as well. So Lovable is one of these products which allows you to basically prompt and then build product. So you simply type here, do the prompt, and it starts building a product. And to prove that, this is my website, which I built. It took me 8 hours because I was prompting back and forth for a while. If I was to do it now, it would take me about 2. Simply by prompting, I built this entire website. And I'm not a coder.
Peter, can I ask, if you weren't to use AI here, what would it, how long would it have taken you, and what would it be involved?
I probably would have had to spend probably about £10,000.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm only showing you this because, like, you can build all this stuff in here. The reason I'm showing you this is you can now build any digital product you want, a chatbot or all sorts in real time, and it will start allowing you to do that by simply prompting. And then you just plug it into the web and then you've got something. So when somebody in the past would have said you can't do a project because it's going to cost you 100 grand, you can say, I think we might be able to build that in-house. You'd probably, on a bigger project, you'd build it yourself and then you go to a developer and say, can you finish off this work and make sure that it's secure and locked in? But the fact, when I said multimodal, I simply went from typing to building a fully functional website. I want to have a bit of fun with you now. So the next thing I wanted to bring you up to speed on is sort of avatar technology and where that's going. So there's a product called HeyGen, and it has a load of custom built avatars. Where it's evolved, it was originally an avatar that you then had to type and then it would say stuff, but now it's an interactive avatar. And what you do is you go in and you build your knowledge. So in this case, I simply dropped in some of your work from your framework just to show what it looks like. So it's literally just words. I've given it a question at the start, and now I've got my knowledge. The reason I'm telling you this is you can now have an interactive avatar representing a project or your company. So in the case of my company, I could have built a knowledge base specifically for the future communicator. And then I could put that into my website and then it would allow me to start building products. So who shall we pick? Anybody want to shout out? Use this person here. Let's go with the Irish contingency.
Yeah, Sheila. Oh my gosh, there we go. Perfect.
All right, let's see if this works. So what I've done is I've built a bunch of knowledges. So in this case, it's the CX trainer. Hopefully this works. It takes a few seconds to start up.
How can I help you with customer experience today?
Hi, I work for John Lewis, the retailer, and we promise that we will be the best price when it comes to any electrical items. However, we've had a complaint from a customer who is right. That they found a product cheaper, but it was an international product. So we don't think it applies to our customer promise. We want to be friendly and we want to respond to them. Can you give us some recommendations?
Absolutely. It's important to approach the situation with empathy and clarity. Here's a suggestion for a response you could use to address the customer's concern while maintaining a friendly tone. Subject: we appreciate your feedback. Dear customer's name, thank you for reaching out and sharing your concern with us. I completely understand how discovering a lower price can be frustrating, especially when it comes to finding the best deal for your purchase. At Chocolatey Lewis, we pride ourselves on our commitment to offering the best prices on all our products.
So I clearly got the name. It can't understand my accent. So it's not perfect. But the fact is,
Yeah.
you know, that could be used for training purposes or internal use. But you could equally, the knowledge base could be your sales collateral. And I have tested this because I went to issues that were highly contentious, like the the challenge with Israel and Gaza at the moment. And I asked it a question, but what about who do you support in that? And it immediately said, I'm only here to talk about sales.
Wow.
If you would like to know about, so they're designed really powerfully to allow you to just focus on whatever knowledge you've dropped into it. So it's
Brilliant.
just
So
like
you can build the parameters and the boundaries there, Peter, to make sure that it's specific to, so the moderation of it is minimal.
yeah, and in fact, I didn't even need to put in those. Essentially, it's what you wanted to talk about. It will be restricted to. So anything that goes outside of that. So if I ask it about a football game, it's going to go, I'm not here to talk about football. I'm here. But if you need
Right.
help with, in this case, with CX training, I'm here to support you, or whatever that might be. So everyone on this call, there'll be examples in your world where you might think this technology, even as an experiment, could be quite useful. For example, I'm speaking to a company called Resuscitation UK, and they're, help people resuscitate, save lives. And one of the things we spoke about was, could this be a trainer for teaching people how to resuscitate, for example? But there'll be a million examples out there to use.
Beautiful. Absolutely fantastic.
So I'll just a couple of more slides, and I'm sure there's questions to be answered. And I'm really going to finish on this one. Even though I've been here talking about AI mainly, and it's important within the work we do, ultimately, and a lot of people concerned about jobs, one of the things that's come across loud and clear is the skills that I think CX practitioners have in abundance becomes paramount in this future. So it's strategic, it's teamwork, it's it's the communication, the interpersonal skills, strategic vision. All these become really, really important in that world. So I think what will happen is the technology will rise, and it will mean we'll be able to do more, take on more, and do things to a better standard. But ultimately, it comes back to that kind of humanity. And I genuinely believe that. So the technology does more of the heavy lifting, but we want intelligent, emotionally intelligent, critical, strategic vision makers who lead this type of work. And I think that's what CX practitioners have in abundance. So yeah, that's just a quick roundup.
Fantastic.
These are the tools. Again, we'll share this all with you later on. But thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. So you're saying we're future-proofed with our skills as CX practitioners. Is that what we're saying?
I think so. I mean, don't
Excellent.
get me wrong. I think there'll be certain roles which will obviously augment and change. But essentially, I think this stuff becomes way more important than ever, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think it's really important as well. We always talk about the balance of digital and human touch. And Michael, I remember a number of years ago, you made the comment about how the interacting with the human and the human touch is going to become a luxury. And it's something that, and I think there's lots of questions and comments there, but I think there was one earlier on about, that it's actually the value of the human touch and interacting with the human is increasing because AI is taking over so much. So I think we're at a very exciting place, but there is no doubt that the human touch is there to stay.
This is great, Peter. And we're doing a presentation back in Helsinki next week. And your last slide there is what I'm missing at the moment. So you've just given me back my weekend, and I'll be tapping you very shortly to see if I can get that particular slide. and presented, but maybe a little bit more insight from you would help. But that is just fantastic. Louise, I'm going to put you on the spot. Was there one or two questions that we can attempt to address while we still have time here that struck you as something that Peter might be interested in having a look at, or did anything jump off the scale from that perspective?
Yeah, so Matthew has just made a comment to say AI means non-coding experts can or will increase the risk of social engineering. Any tips for companies to fight against this?
It'd be good to understand by social engineering, as in what sort of bad actors
Wow.
take impacting on business. Is that what the reference is about? Oh
Um,
yes, yeah. Oh, this becomes rife. The reason I started experimenting with these interactive avatars was based on a story I read. I have to be honest, my dark sense of humor, it was pretty bad of me to laugh at this, but I read a story that somebody in Hong Kong thought they were speaking to their chief financial officer and transferred $25 million
Wow.
because it was an interactive avatar which had
Mm-hmm.
been trained. Its knowledge base was, hey, we need to get that money across, and they'd cloned the chief financial officer. So this becomes incredibly sophisticated. So my sort of advice to any organization is make sure your staff are aware of this, whether it's email. And by the way, because they can make it hyper personalized, you could reply to an email and then immediately analyze it and send you a response back. So, but it could be email, it could be phone because it's voice, or it can be now audio visual as well. So it's something that I will say that people are getting much better at, like, seeing deep fakes as well.
Mm.
But yes, you're absolutely right. We're at a point now where I think bad actors who want to make financial gain or damage somebody's reputation can do that at a scale like never before.
Brilliant, brilliant. Louise, before you jump in, let me just, I see, Miraka, you're asking where we're going to be in Helsinki. We're in the Savoy. I believe it's not a hotel. I believe it's a nice restaurant somewhere downtown. And we're there as guests of Amazon and Zendesk. And if you wish, I'll attempt to pass on your name if you're happy and see if I can get an invite sent to you. I think it's on Wednesday in the morning. So let me do that as a follow-up. So thank you for your ask. Back to you, Louise. Any questions?
Yeah, so there's another one here. Are you able to share a business case regarding a 360 view on the customer to optimize human agents?
Oh, I'd need to sort of take that away and look at that. A lot of the work I've done, because this technology is moving so quickly, has been certain aspects of that rather than the full picture. But ultimately, sort of my belief is if you can plug in all the data points relevant to a customer, like the example I showed you earlier, you're starting to get a much fuller picture of them. And then what you're going to start seeing, and I've seen this already, there's a product called Crystal, which I'd highly recommend. You can try it out for free, even try it out on yourself. What you do is you can basically drop in your LinkedIn profile and it will analyze all your LinkedIn content, and then it will do a kind of a readout of who you are as a person. It will tell you how you should. So if I was to do, say, Siobhan, I was to do it of yours, it would then tell me let's say you like creative, you like visual, and it will teach you how to communicate directly. I appreciate I may not have fully answered the original question, but Crystal is something you should experiment with. I will take that away and I will try and dig out some examples and come back to you.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And we'll connect you to as part of that. That's great. Anything else there?
There's another one here. What are your tips to govern data, since you sometimes need to over-explain specific elements to prompt correctly? Same with meeting intelligence and transcription, some things we don't want them to know.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that.
What are your tips to govern data, since you sometimes need to over-explain specific elements to prompt correctly? Same with meeting intelligence and transcription, some things we don't want them to know.
Yeah, that's the challenge. I'd say the first thing, a lot of the reason why people don't want to give it too much information is because they're worried that that information will be leaked. And that's why you either want, let's say for ChatGPT, for example, if you have a Teams account or you have an enterprise, it's locked in within your business. So even though you get all the positives of the large language model, it's not going to take that data and then feed it to the model. It's same with Copilot. So as long as you're using secure products and you just need to check anything that you use that's free, just assume you're giving that data away. That's the challenge. So I would say once you have secure, then you should be free to analyze it whatever way you feel fit. If you're struggling to analyze something, the beauty of this technology is just ask it. You say, I want to analyze this particular information, this meeting. I'm specifically interested in X and Y. Can you help me write a prompt? And then you can then work with it to build a prompt, and then you drop in the information, and then you get a better prompt. So when I do deep research, I never say do some research on British Airways and their competitors. I will always have a conversation with ChatGPT first, build a comprehensive prompt, and then the results are like 10 times better.
Wow, brilliant.
But the alternative to that is you can remove all sensitive data and put in dummy names if required, and then you can analyze it again. It's not quite as good, but that's one of the things I have done in the past where companies have said no data is allowed to be put into a model. So you'd remove anything that's confidential that might acknowledge who the people you're analyzing is.
Yeah. Quick one here. Jim O'Keefe says, as you said, the technology is so new. Are there safeguards in place to counteract cyber criminals, basically their use of AI? Interesting question. I mean, what sort of activity is taking place there, Peter? Should we be worried?
So I have some sort of background in this space. When I was in government, one of my teams were called a rapid response unit, and they responded specifically to mis and disinformation. That was mainly pre the AI that we have now, but a lot of the same principles apply. So there are tools on the market that will allow you, and I can dig them out and maybe put them into the final presentation. My worry is a lot of them are either really, really expensive or the ones that are cheaper just don't work. So for example, I created a fake image of myself and I ran it through the model. It said it was real. So I think the technology is, and bad actors are using it quicker than the technology to counteract it is. So I think that's one of the big kind of challenges of our time. And I think you're going to see way more significant cyber attacks, that kind of thing going forward than ever before.
So that hence those comments of terrified
Yeah.
is potentially, it's not in our understanding of it, it is the abuse of it. And that's very, very valid. When do you think the terrifying will disappear from our concerns, Peter? Is that years away? Will we ever catch up with the cyber criminals? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the technology will keep evolving. Like in the last few weeks, even just OpenAI have introduced incredible image generation. It used to be really kind of a little bit woolly. You know, you'd ask it to do your brand, and it wouldn't even spell your company's name correctly. Now you could say, I could take a snap of all of us on screen and say, recreate this in the style of The Simpsons, and it would do it immediately, and it would be top quality. So even at that level, like they've introduced deep research, they've introduced new models. It's just evolving so quickly. And what I would say is, as an organization, it's over 70% of people using AI are using it without their bosses knowing. So they're using tools that are probably free because they can't be bothered to pay for them. They can see the upshot of they can do their work quicker and more effectively than ever before. And I think what needs to happen is companies need to invest, but have, and this is what we tend to do with businesses. We will go in and be more agile and say, here's the approach you should take because the technology will keep evolving, and make sure you get the right tools that are either secure or enterprise level.
Yeah, that's
Brilliant.
really good advice.
Siobhan, was there anything that struck you in terms of some of the questions there that we may have overlooked, or anything that because I'm conscious we normally do a 45-minute, we're probably a little over time here, but that just gives you some sense. Any thoughts in terms of some questions that were coming through?
I think we've covered as much as we can given the time that we have. And Peter, thank you so much for your input and your time today. There's fantastic feedback coming through from everybody. Some wow moments were one of the comments that came through there. And I think it's such an evolving industry that, you know, we're going to have AI webinars, I think, on the agenda on a regular basis going forward. And it's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that screenshot that you gave, Peter, or that image that you gave of all of the different CX tools, how that changes over time as well. That will be interesting to see.
And I know you said it earlier, Siobhan, and we repeat it again. I mean, we do have a micro course on AI, which is going down very, very well. And that's also part of the diploma course. So for those of you on that, and it's very, very useful. And again, the only thing it is missing, and it's why, Peter, we've been engaging with you so often, is an updated version of which are the key tools for CX, because as you know, it's just changing so fast. So that has to be an ongoing. I think, Peter, what you need to do is have a site out there that updates all of the key AI tools by segment. That would be a great solution, I think, for the world. But I mean, that would be changing every day.
I analyzed over 2,000 AI tools on the market, and then I've been sort of so busy. I got to keep that work up. But yes, there is a gap there because it is evolving so quickly. New players coming to the market much cheaper than the ones before. But I will go back to it. If you don't have the money to invest in the bigger tools, look at those tools anyway. Look at the capabilities they have, and then go back to ChatGPT and say, I would like to have for example, sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
Can you help me build out a sentiment analysis prompt or a GPT? It will build you a scrappier version of that, and you don't have to pay for it. So this world is evolving very quickly.
Yeah. And in fact, I remember, Peter, when we first met a number of years ago, I think the thing you mentioned to me at the time was, Mike, just go into ChatGPT and say, this is who I am. This is my role. What AI tools are out there to help me? And I spent the whole weekend engaged in that. It was absolutely phenomenal. So it's not a bad task for anybody to just, as you say, spend a bit of work on the prompt itself, you know, getting that piece right. And you will be given a list of amazing tools that you can connect with immediately. And that's probably a really good step for people in my stage who are kind of less mature on AI than I should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the final thing I'd say is somebody said to me once, the best time to start on AI would have been 2 or 3 years ago. Well, the next best time is now. Like, you will catch up really quickly. And that's something that I'm always teaching people. And you'll have that penny drop moment where you go, oh, this is how I do it. And I think everyone I've worked with has had that. And then they're off to the races, and you step out of the way and let them get on with it.
Yeah, I love Vipul. I hope I pronounced your name right. Prompt engineers is the next hot job. I totally agree with you. Vipul, nice one. I love it.
Vipul.
Peter, it's been an honor to see you again and have you on board today. Louise, thank you so much for landing this in with all your drama that's going on in your life right now, being stuck in Spain. Safe home tonight. And Siobhan, as always, thank you for co-hosting and getting involved. And everybody, again, to confirm, when Louise is back, she will get a recording of this out to everybody. And Peter, if there's any other questions coming through, we may connect you with some individuals directly if that's possible. Yeah, so thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you sooner rather than later. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Louise. Bye-bye.